Miss Lizzie. I don't ever smoke the dizzy, but we can always share some ditzies. It's just a cup in time. This song doesn't have to rhyme. Life's all of us, not every moment we can be feeling fine. I wanna share a moment, just a second if you will, maybe even a cup of thrill. We could share this performance. It's tea time, come sit with me.
Well, welcome guys, Miss Liz in the house, and today I have Jacqueline Boylan in the house, and we're going to talk about her children's book, and we're going to talk about her tea as well. And her tea is Love, Rescued, and Survived. That is the tea we are serving in the house. But before we get started, you guys know how Miss Liz rolls. Get over to all those platforms: Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, Alignable, Blue Notes, Blue Sky, Lemonade, Clapper, all those good platforms. Give those likes and follow and subscribe. If you notice that the guests are on those platforms as well, give them a follow and subscribe, because that's how we do make a difference with tea. Jump over to the podcast apps: Podbean, iHeartRadio, Deezer, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those good platforms. And then jump over to babyboomers.org. Miss Liz has been partnered with them for over 3 years. If you're looking to be featured on different podcasts and Miss Liz doesn't offer you what you're looking for, you can jump over there and pitch your story to them, and they will be happy to serve you over there as well. So check over on babyboomers.org. Let's get started with disclaimer and then a beautiful intro, and then we're going to get Jacqueline in here. We're going to have some fun today with all of you guys out there. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz's Tea Time is a global platform dedicating to sharing real-life stories, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations that inspire awareness, healing, and connection. Miss Liz is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment during the live broadcast, please grant StreamYard permission to display your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that all the content brought forward during any Tea Time show is presented in good faith. However, discussions may include opinions, beliefs, and perspectives that do not necessarily represent the views of Miss Liz or the Tea Time platform. Information shared by guests is based on their own experiences and is perceived to be accurate at the giving time of airing. All guests, viewers, and participants are responsible for using their own good judgment when considering any action or decision that may relate to these discussions. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics, including but not limited to trauma, abuse, grief, mental health, and other emotionally triggering subjects. Listeners' and viewers' discretion is strongly advised. Tea Time with Miss Liz is an open discussion forum designed to offer insight, inspire awareness, and create connection. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, legal, or therapeutical advice. If you require professional support, please seek assistance from qualified professionals or trusted resources in your area. If you have any questions regarding this disclaimer or the content of your discussion, you are welcome to contact me, aka Miss Liz, directly at Miss Liz, bookingmissliz@gmail.com, or visit my link to at Miss Liz's Tea Time. By choosing to participate in, comment on, or view these live shows, you acknowledge and accept this disclaimer. Your participation is entirely voluntary. Miss Liz welcomes you to join the conversation with an open heart, and if at any time you feel this platform is not right for you, I respect your wishes and decision and welcome you back whenever you are ready. Tea Time with Miss Liz is serving truth and awareness one cup at a time. Well, welcome to Tea Time with Miss Liz, where every conversation reminds us that every life's deepest wounds can become the place where hope begins to grow. Today, we are honored to welcome an extraordinary woman whose life story is one of resilience, compassion, unwavering faith, and the incredible strength of the human spirit. Please join me in welcoming Jacqueline K. Boylan, author of A Broken Twig Can Sprout, certified registered nurse, educator, storyteller, and passionate advocate for children who have experienced trauma and adversity. Raised by her beloved great-grandmother in Brooklyn, New York, Jacqueline experienced profound loss at a very young age. By the age of 8, she had lost both of her parents to substance abuse. At 12, she lost her maternal grandmother to pancreas cancer, and years later, she lovingly cared for the woman who raised her, her great-grandmother, until her peaceful passing from breast cancer at the remarkable age of 103. Rather than allowing those experiences to define her, Jacqueline transformed her pain into purpose. Through A Broken Twig Can Sprout, she offers children and adults alike a powerful reminder that our circumstances do not determine our future. No matter how broken life may seem, hope can still take root. Healing is possible, and every life has the ability to grow beyond adversity. Beyond her writing, Jacqueline enjoys photographing, bike riding, studying, and teaching Bible, and has a deep appreciation for the American Sign Language, reflecting her lifelong commitment to communication, compassion, and serving others. Today, we'll explore the deeply personal journey behind a broken twig can sprout, growing through childhood trauma and loss, faith as a foundation for healing, turning grief into purpose, encouraging children to believe they can overcome adversity, and the lasting impact stories can have on generations. Jacqueline reminds us that sometimes the strongest trees begin as a broken twig that simply refuse to stop growing. So grab your favorite cup and join us for a heartfelt conversation filled with resilience, hope, and healing and real life tea, truth, experience, and awareness. And let me get Jacqueline in here and let's spill some tea. Welcome, Jacqueline.
Hello. Thank you so
There
much
we
for
go.
having me.
We got you back in here.
Yes. Thank you for having me on.
It is a pleasure to have you. So, Jacqueline, let's get to know you a little bit from besides what I read in the bio and all that good stuff. But tell us a little bit on who Jacqueline was as a little girl and who Jacqueline is now.
Okay. So, Jackie, as a little girl, was a little girl who lived with her great grandma, who loved her grandma, who experienced a lot of loss. As you mentioned, I lost my mom when I was 7, lost my dad when I was 8. So, as a result of that, I had a lot of sadness. Um, but with the help of my grandmother, some teachers, good friends, I was able to, grow through it. Jackie, as an adult, after losing my grandmother, had to cope through some very difficult feelings of all that loss that I experienced. And at one point, the losses were overwhelming me, but I learned how to turn that pain into something purposeful. And so that's who I would say Jackie is today as an adult.
Pain to purpose. I love it, because that's our greatest purpose is our pain. So,
Yeah, I would say, if I didn't find purpose in the pain would just swallow me up.
absolutely. And a lot of people don't understand that when we say pain to purpose, right? Because if we let the pain eat at us, we're not growing, right? And I love the title of your book. I'm going to pull your book up. So if you just want to share a little bit about what we're looking at for the audio listeners, and then we're going to get into it. But I want to understand what inspired you to write A Broken Twig Can Sprout. And here's the incredible book that we're talking about today on Tea Time.
Sure. So on the cover, there's a little girl holding a twig and she's looking up at a tree. And the tree is symbolic of who she can be when she grows up as an adult. So she's looking up at this tree that's beautiful, that's powerful, that's strong, and with the hope in her heart that one day I will survive all the sadness that I've experienced.
So could you tell us a little bit about what's in the book?
Sure. So I'll tell you why I wrote it, and then I'll tell you about the storyline. So the book is actually the storyline of my life and things that have happened to me. After my grandmother passed away, the only way I can explain it is like when I was a child, she was like a shield, right? So my mom passed away when I was 7. My mom actually was murdered when I was 7. And then my dad died the next year. And even though I went through those painful things, my grandmother was so loving that, like, she was my protector. She was a shield to the painful experiences. And besides the loss of my parents, I also had an abusive relative, someone that I loved very much and kind of looked up to as a maternal figure since my mother was not there. But unfortunately, she was emotionally abusive. And so I would say when my grandmother passed, one of the most difficult things that I experienced was, not having my protector anymore. And then also this family member whom, I still love, despite the fact that she was abusive, having for the first time cope with the fact that she is not capable of loving me, right? That she was abusive. And so my nervous system got extremely overwhelmed. I ended up in the emergency room exactly 1 year after my grandmother passed on her anniversary. And when I ended up in the hospital, I was referred to a wonderful psychologist that helped me basically go all the way back to when my mom passed away, look at the root of this pain that I was experiencing from 30 years ago, and help me to see, why was it manifesting itself now? And so as a result of that, I started writing Little Jackie a letter. And so when I started writing Little Jackie a letter, I was trying to comfort her and let her know that it wasn't her fault, the things that happened to her. And that's how A Broken Twig Can Sprout was born. Because originally it was just a therapy. Because one thing that I was coping with and experiencing was a lot of guilt. Children who are abused, or people who are abused, not even children alone, but people who are abused tend to self-blame. Maybe I could have been better. Maybe if I was kinder, maybe, and my brain was doing that. It was, what did I do to not make this woman love me? It was really intense. And so I started writing this book, and the book starts off as Dear Little One, right? And what essentially I was trying to do was recall all the good and loving feelings that my grandmother gave me. When my grandmother was alive, I felt special. I knew that I was special. So I was trying to recall those positive feelings to my mind. And so, I start off with the young girl as a baby, and all the way. So basically, the adult version of her is speaking to the little girl version of her and letting her know some things are going to happen to you. You're going to be sad, but it's not your fault. That was the key message that I wanted to get across in this book.
Well, that's one of the questions that came in here is, it comes in from Justina, is what message do you hope every child takes from your book?
That's an excellent question. So the message that I hope that every child takes away is that I don't want children to blame themselves. If you have a parent, a caregiver, somebody who's raising you, an aunt or uncle, and they're not capable to love you the way that you deserve to be loved. Children, they're too young to even understand that. When I was younger, I didn't understand that my relative wasn't capable, that she had emotional issues. Like I didn't understand that. So children, they just think it's my fault. I'm not good enough. I need to do something better. Maybe if I was smarter, maybe So the message that I want them to walk away with is it's not your fault. Bad things have happened to you, but it's not because of you. It doesn't mean that you're not lovable.
Yeah.
So that's the message.
I really love, Jacqueline, that you say that, the adult spoke to the little girl, because that's part of the healing, right? Is speaking to the inner child, understanding that it wasn't our fault and where the shame and the guilt all hold, right? So in this book that you wrote, A Broken Twig Can Sprout, is it the adult speaking to the little girl in the story?
Yeah, so that's actually adult Jackie speaking to little Jackie and trying to convince her. And I'll be 100% honest, it took a lot of work for me to get there. And even still, every now and then, those guilty feelings try to sneak back up. And the funny thing is, I'll read my own book and it'll remind me, like, no, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. But when you're used to someone telling you, oh, you're bad, that message gets kind of ingrained in your head. And so, yeah, so it's adult Jackie speaking to little Jackie. And the reason why I didn't name the character in this book is because I wanted any child to feel like it was them.
Oh, I like that. So
Yeah.
the little girl in the book has no name.
No, she doesn't. It's
I like
just their
that,
little one.
because it makes it personal for the person who's reading it.
Yes.
So how long did it take you to write this book?
Actually, it didn't take very long. It only, oh my goodness. I was like just pouring my heart out. So I think it took maybe 2 or 3 weeks, but what took the longest was the process of illustration, and that took about a year. And so I have an illustrator. She lives in Italy. She's amazing, and it was a little difficult at first. I'm a very emotional girl, and she's not. So a lot of times when I would tell her to draw a scene, we had to work at it until she was able to capture the emotion. And so it took about a year to get it done.
Well, you wanted it perfect, right? You wanted it to be the way that you wanted to represent it. And illustration is hard because, especially when you work with somebody who doesn't understand the emotion, right, or hasn't gone through those emotions, then they have a hard time to express it. We have another question here from Gerald, and it is, what advice would you give someone struggling with grief today?
Wow, excellent question. Um, I'll tell you what, when my great grandmother actually, that raised me first passed away, I literally thought I was gonna die. Like that's how unbearable the pain was. And she died in home hospice, and the hospice program recommended a grief counselor as a part of the care. So they enrolled me in grief counseling. At first, I didn't think it was gonna work. Um, but this woman, she actually was an art therapist.
Oh,
And actually, she actually is a part of the reason why I chose a tree also, because what she did was she had me draw a tree and she made me draw the roots. And she asked me what were the gifts that my grandmother gave me. And so in the roots of the tree, I wrote down all the wonderful things that my grandmother gave me and or taught me. And then she helped me to see that those gifts that she taught me was what was going to allow the tree to be able to continue to grow. And so she gave me something really powerful. Like she flipped my mind into from my grandmother's no longer here to my grandmother gave me a gift, multiple gifts actually, and I have the power to carry that on. And so for anyone suffering grief, I would just say, think about all the wonderful things that person gave you and taught you, and think about how you can now pay forward the gifts that they gave you to someone else. And in a sense, it gives that person's life meaning and purpose. Um, I remember, I was really bad. I was really, really bad. One person said, your grandmother, because my grandmother lived to 103. One person said, your grandma fought so hard to keep living for you, right? So now you have to keep living for her.
yeah,
So, it just flipped my mind. But also, grief comes in waves, right? I remember a person took me to the beach, and a friend, she took me to the beach, and we saw the waves coming. And she told me, do you see how the waves come and then they recede? She said, that's how grief is going to be. Um, so just allow yourself to feel it. It's okay. It's okay. I have days still where I just can cry and cry and cry. Like, I miss my grandmother so much. But that's just evidence of how much that person loved you.
exactly. They say the more you cry, the more the love was there.
Yes. So
And I
let
get
yourself
that. I
cry.
get
Let
that
yourself feel
100%,
it.
right? With grandmas, it's different, right? It's a different upbringing as well because grandparents are different with their grandchildren than parents are. Um, we have some more questions that are coming in for you, Jacqueline, and I just like to get them up to you. From Jason, Jacqueline, what was the turning point that helped you transform childhood pain into a lifelong mission of hope and healing?
Excellent question. So the turning point would be, I guess, I had an awesome clinical psychologist. And she just really worked with me to see number one, um, a lot of the things that have happened, because I was kind of sad about things that happened in adulthood, between me and this family member. Again, the guilt, I wish I could have done things better or whatever. Um, she just helped me to appreciate that all of the things that have happened between us in adulthood was a result of how I was treated in childhood. And so when she finally helped me to get to the point where I could see that it was not my fault, no matter what, if someone mistreated you as a child, there's no way it's your fault because they had the responsibility to care for you as the older person. Um, that's when I was able to once I was able to let that guilt and shame go, then I could move forward. Then I could sprout, so to speak. And so just giving yourself grace as a child and even as an adult, if you didn't make good decisions, she helped me to see that some of those things that happened were a result of what happened as a child. So give yourself grace, forgive yourself if you feel like you could have done things better. And yeah, just give yourself grace.
Sometimes we're so hard on ourselves that we just need to give ourselves grace. That's really an important message that you're giving to the listeners today, Jacqueline, and sharing your story and coming and being so vulnerable to an audience, right? On so many great losses, like your mom, your dad, your grandma, your great grandma. Some of us still have all of these people in our lives. So how did that affect your life growing up?
The losses? Oh. So when my great grandmother passed, just recently, I was actually diagnosed with complicated grief because it's like my brain just couldn't make sense of, everyone essentially who truly loved me as a child, was now gone with my great grandmother passing. And so um, I would say the loss that affected me the most as a child was obviously my mom. As I mentioned, my mom was murdered. She was a drug addict and she was found behind a schoolyard. And so I remember the police coming to our home, letting my grandmother know that they had found her. I mean, it was horrible. Like, I can't even describe, I remember that happened on a Saturday. I remember going to school on Monday and kids coming up to me like, I heard your mom died. And, I couldn't even process it myself. And then the neighborhood, everyone was talking about it. And so that affected me the most. Because I didn't have my mom and then the other family member that I love was abusive. I tend to look forward for that nurturing in others, like in teachers. Um, you know, I would have to say I'm very grateful that I had wonderful teachers that did nurture me. And so I love teachers to this day. Like, teachers have such an amazing job and role in children's lives and are able to fill gaps. I think teachers don't get enough credit for what they do. They're more than teachers. They're with your child like 8 hours a day and they're like role models for the child. So yeah, and so then when my grandmother passed away when I was 12, she had pancreatic cancer. It was really sad. I mean, it's just all of it was just really sad, and I think that's why when my great grandmother passed, during COVID, it tipped me over.
Yeah.
Yeah, it tipped me over.
You mentioned something that we don't talk about much is the teachers, how we get drawn to the teachers for safety and for nurturing as well, right? Because if we're not getting it at home, we want it from the teacher. So, a lot of people will call them teachers' pets or, or brown nosers or, you know what I mean? Like they would,
Yeah.
like you just try to pull to the teacher, but you're actually looking for that nurturing. And that's something that we haven't ever mentioned on Tea Time is how much teachers impact children's lives. I know my grade 7 teacher, she was in one of my books and she wrote my forward and she taught 4 generations. And she impacted my life. She impacted all of the generations in my family. Was there one teacher that really stood out to you that you'd like to give a shout out to today?
Yeah, I was just about to ask, can I mention one? So my 5th grade teacher, her name was Susan Alt. Um, she she changed the whole trajectory of my life. And what I mean by that is, um, in New York City, they have these standardized tests that, children take every year to see how good their reading and math level skills are. And the first 4 years of elementary school, I always failed. Like, it's crazy. I look back at my report card. It's like I scored in 38th percentile. And I'm aware now as an adult that's because of all the emotional stuff that I was going through. Mom died in second grade, dad died in third grade. I always went to school crying. The teachers would call my grandmother. They didn't know what to do with me. I have report cards where they wrote something's wrong, but we don't, we don't know what. So I get to fifth grade. I have this teacher who just saw a light in me. I mean, she saw something in me. And so she would whisper in my ear, "You're going to be great one day." She's like, "I know you're going to be great one day." And all of that nurturing that she poured on me, that year I scored in the 99th percentile in reading and math. Like, she helped me to grow academically. She was actually the first teacher that realized that I could write, that I had some talent writing. So she enrolled me in a creative writing course.
Oh.
Yeah, she did. And so after my year with her, she called me her class philosopher. I don't know why, but she called me her class philosopher. She gave me that title. When I got to sixth grade, I was placed in all honors courses because of how well I did on the state test for fifth grade. So she changed, like, she put confidence in me. She made me feel like I was worth something. And then from sixth grade to high school, I was always in honors classes. So,
one person, it only takes one person to believe in you, and it makes
yes.
all the difference. So a huge thank you to all those teachers out there that are making a difference for these children.
Yes.
We have a question here from Adam for you. It's, your story is incredibly inspiring. What advice would you give someone who feels their past has completely defined their future?
Wow, that's a very excellent question. I will definitely say that it's not true. One thing that I've learned in going through therapy is that our brains are essentially programmed a certain way, and that programming comes from our past experiences, the people that have been in our lives. I didn't understand that, like, this negative thinking pattern that I had was a result of, this family member constantly telling me that I was bad, that I was troublesome, that, like, all these negative things. When the doctor was able to help me to kind of change that thought pattern, then it changed my outlook. It changed the way I feel about myself. We all make mistakes. We all have a past. But we also have a future that we can define. One thing that I say in my book is that you are forgivable. So even if you've done something terrible, if you truly feel sorry about it and took the actions to change that behavior, it's over. It's over. It's done. So we can choose, where we want to go. We can change the story's ending. That's how I end the book too. You can change the ending of the story.
Right? Our futures are not determined by our past.
Correct. One of my favorite sayings is, like, a good card player knows how to play a bad deck. Like, so if you would dealt a bad deck, you're good. Yeah.
So you're a good card player, right?
I'm trying to be. Yeah.
Look, Jacqueline, we have a question here from Adventure Shows, and it's, what does resilient mean to you personally?
Oh, that's a good question. Resilience means to me, it doesn't mean that you're not sad. I still suffer a lot with depression, to be honest. But resilience means that you're able to still move forward, to keep growing, despite the things that have happened, despite the sadness. You're still making the effort to get up and try another day. That's resilience to me.
I really think your tea time is going to make a difference for a lot of listeners out there today, because We're having a real, raw, authentic conversation about grief and how it impacts lives, right? Uh, and how it makes a difference in our lives. Complicated grief is something that we don't speak about much. We talk about grief, but we don't talk about the complicated grief. Did you have a hard time processing that your great grandma was actually gone?
I did. Like, I remember, oh my goodness. You know what's the weirdest thing? So, mom died, dad died, grandma died, but my great grandmother was always there. She was always there to give me a hug. She was always there to say it's gonna be okay. Like, but when my great grandmother died, she wasn't there. She wasn't there to comfort me. So it was the strangest thing I've experienced. Like, and also I lived with her from birth until she passed. So over 30 years we lived together. So when I will never forget the first time I came home and she wasn't there, I just collapsed on the floor. Like, I just, like, someone sent me an article that says when someone you love so closely passes away, your brain literally has to rewire.
Yeah,
So my brain, like, couldn't process that she's not here anymore. It was very difficult. Yeah.
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 For all the listeners out there, today we're talking about a children's book, a Twig that we're talking about the book that Jacqueline wrote here, and it's called "A Broken Twig Can Sprout." It's a children's book, but we want to get you guys to understand a little bit more about her story as well. Uh, we have a question here from James Show, and it's: was there one moment that changed your life forever? And I think that was when great grandma died.
Definitely, definitely. Uh,
Was there a moment in your life that really changed that you look back and you say that was great grandma that did that for me after she passed? Like almost like a message of keep going, like or like graduating or becoming a because you're a nurse. So
yeah, yeah, I'm a
do you
nurse.
feel that that was great grandma pushing you to do that?
No, you know what I will say? What I will say and what I realized is my great grandmother gave me already everything that I needed to survive. Um, I kind of had this aha moment of, I went from how can I live? How can I continue to live without her? Being here without her, being the buffer between, me and other family members that are not so kind. How can I? But then I would remember conversations that we had. Um, just the memories that she gave me. It's like she already gave me everything that I need to survive. And so what I try to do on a daily basis is focus on that. Because unfortunately, what this experience has taught me is that when you've experienced any type of abuse, that tends to take over your brain.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time ruminating, 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 almost like trying to think my way out of, did this really happen? Did these things really happen to me? Um, and another reason why I wrote the book was because I was trying to force my brain to remember the good things that happened. Abuse can make your brain not remember those things. And so I try to make myself remember grandma gave you everything you need to
Yeah.
survive. Yeah.
Well, it's true, right? Abuse has a long effect, and a lot of people say, "Well, I can heal you from it." It's a life journey, you know. And I've said this many times. I'd rather get beaten than have emotional abuse because the
Yeah.
emotional abuse plays on the mind all the time. It makes you second guess. It makes you question if it really happened, like you
Yeah.
mentioned. You know, did I do something wrong? Could I have done better? Could I love them more? Could I have not loved them enough? Like you're always questioning yourself, and then the shame starts to eat at you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
I
we have a
definitely agree.
we have a question here from Mac, and it's how do you stay hopeful during difficult seasons?
Hmm. Excellent question, Mac. Um, how do I stay hopeful? One thing I will say is, you know, as a child, like I wrote in the beginning of the book, the dedication to my grandmother, is that my grandmother taught me what God's love is. So I always feel like when I was younger, my grandma, it's a funny thing, she wasn't religious at all. She believed in God, but she wasn't religious. Um, but I always knew that, God was there. And I always felt loved by God because I felt loved by her. So she was like the representation of God's love. So when she passed away, of course, it was the first time I'm going through such painful, difficult emotions. But something that helps me is remembering that he loved me then and he still loves me now. So she may not, physically be here, she may not be present, but just having a personal relationship with God and knowing that um, he's present and he's there. And um, one of my favorite Bible scriptures is a promise that it's in Isaiah 65. It's also in the book. A form of the things that we're suffering now will not be called to mind in the future. And so just being a person of faith, I guess I would say carries me through.
Well, a lot of people that don't believe in the scriptures and Bibles are not religious. They're really spiritual, right? They believe that God has given this life for a purpose, you know, and this life was given to you, Jackie, so that you could share your story today with all these tea timers, you know. So, yeah, we have a question here from Randall, and it is, what has been the most rewarding part of your journey?
I think the most rewarding part, when the book first came out, um, all of my friends super supportive. They bought it, and it's a children's book, but it was the adults that called me and were in tears and were crying and were saying, "You touched a place in me." I had one friend that said to me, her name is Monique. You saw little Monique. She's like, I don't even know how to thank you for that. So just that has been so rewarding, knowing that my word, like basically what I've learned is we're all scarred in some type of way from childhood. And so it's kind of been rewarding to see other people say, thank you for helping me feel that it wasn't my fault what happened to me. That's been amazing.
Well, children's books have a way of doing that, right? More adults are buying children's books than people realize because it's an easy read. And then you can also use it with your children, your grandchildren, your great grandchildren, you know. But sometimes those children books open up an inner child within us that we never were able to express. And
Yeah.
I really like that you didn't name the child in the book because it gives them that personal journey as well. Like your friend Monique said, you know, you found the little Monique in me because you didn't name this child in the book, so she could see herself in the book.
Yeah. So I was, and this is a friend who's been in my life for 20 years. And so to hear her say that was just, it was amazing. Yeah. It's been amazing hearing people say that.
Well, we have a question here from Rick, and it is, what has surprised you the most since publishing your book?
That's a good question. So I started a nonprofit after publishing the book because I want to help other children who have had experiences like me, right? So I have a really big heart, and I want to do all these amazing things. And I think what has surprised me the most is it's a little difficult. Like, I have these goals and these plans that I want to do to help these children, and I've been trying to reach out to other people who are in this field of, trauma, children's trauma. But it's been difficult to connect, you know, with persons who have the same goal, I guess. So I would say that that was kind of surprising because I kind of thought, I mean, I guess um, maybe a little naive, that hey, if I just shoot an email and say, hey, I want to help in this field, that I would get all this feedback. But that hasn't been the case. So I guess I would say that has been like the most surprising. Yeah.
Well, don't give up, Jacqueline.
Yeah.
Keep knocking on those doors because
Yeah.
it only takes that one door to open, right? we got to just keep knocking. Sometimes people are like not understanding what we're going for, but
Yeah.
there's a reason why you're knocking on those doors. So keep knocking on those doors. And if you got to knock a couple times, you knock a couple times. You got this.
Yeah, I don't plan to give up at all.
We have a question here from Kobe, and it is Miss Liz always brings amazing guests. Thank you guys. Jacqueline, what message do you hope every child who reads your book remembers forever?
Great question. So, one thing that I realized in writing this book was how blessed I am that I had a great grandmother who lived long enough, loved me long enough that I was able to graduate from high school and then college too, right? Nursing school. Um, but I realized, man, like not every child has that, right? And not everybody has a cheerleader. So in my own little way, I hope that the cheering that I'm doing for the kids in this book will help them to see that like your life has purpose. Those bad things happen to you, but it doesn't mean that you don't have a bright future ahead of you, a wonderful future. I don't want kids to give up on themselves. That's kind of my message. And it's hard not to give up on yourself if you don't have support, right? You
Yeah.
don't have a support system. I will say that flat out. It's very difficult if you don't have cheerleaders. So, in my own little way, this book was written to cheer on the kids who have gone through so much pain and adversity.
I just want to read out this comment that came in from Nick, and it says, "Thank you for advocating for children and families. Your work is making a real difference."
Thank you so much, Nick. I appreciate that.
So we have a question here from Gerald, and your faith shines throughout this conversation. How has it guided you during your most difficult seasons of life?
Well, I guess I would say kind of like what I said before. Like I said, as a child, I knew that I was loved by God. I knew that, like He gave me my great grandmother because my mom, I didn't mention this part of the story. When I was 6 months old, my mom became homeless and she was walking around the street with me. And she also knew that my grandma was a safe place. It was her grandmother, my great grandmother. So she knocked on my great grandmother's door in the middle of the night. And my great grandmother said, "You are not going back outside with this baby." And that's how I ended up there. So my great grandmother took me from my mom at 6 months. Um, and so I always knew like God loves me. God made sure that I was in a safe place with my grandmother. And so just not forgetting that, because the world and abuse and people who aren't kind, they can try to make you forget, all the good things that have happened in your life. And so I make it my aim to not forget that.
Well, we have a question here for you that came in, and it's, why is it important to talk openly about adverse childhood experiences, also known as the ACE?
So that's a good question. I just started grad school a year ago, and my first semester we had to write this paper based on research, medical research, and I chose ACEs, and my mind was kind of blown away by what I read, like all the research that I found, and essentially, it's a field of study that's not discussed too often. There's a couple of doctors out there that are, trying to spread the word about it. But essentially, what they have discovered in medicine is a lot of the illnesses that we have as an adult is a result of some traumatic thing that happened in our childhood. So, I'll just give an example of this one doctor, and I was reading her book, and she's a pediatrician out in California. Her name is Dr. Nadine Burke. And she tells a story of, a child that children kept coming in her office, with these different illnesses, but she couldn't figure out the source, right? Because, we're doctors and nurses, so what do? We look for physical symptoms, physical causes. And long story made short, the child was 7 years old, but at the growth height of a 4-year-old. She ended up asking mom what happened at the age of 4, and then realized the child, I believe, was molested. And so basically stopped growing at that age. And so it's important to understand, you know, this medical research on adverse childhood experiences, because it explains, it's a reason why, you know, these different illnesses, autoimmune disease, different things might pop up in adulthood. And I think that's something that is not talked about enough.
Yeah.
Because again, as doctors and I'm a nurse, we look for physical symptoms. I'll just say it's amazing because I'm in nursing school for the second time because I'm in grad school. I graduated the first time from nursing school 16 years ago, and so the experience is completely different. Because the first time I went, you know, you learned about anatomy and physiology, you learned about disease, you learned about the medication that treats the disease. But now, my second time in nursing school, I'm learning more of the emotional and social things that happen in our lives that cause disease, which I didn't learn about the first time. So it's been very interesting.
Well, for anybody that wants to know more about the ACEs, where could they find information about that?
Um, there is actually this doctor, Dr. Nadine Burke. You can Google her. Um, she has a resource called, I believe it's called the ACEs Network. If you Google her name, it'll come up. And also, she has a TED Talk on YouTube, which explains this much better than I can explain it. It's pretty amazing. And she also just did a podcast with Mel Gibbons, I believe. Last name is, yeah, where she explains it in more detail.
I want to get into a project that you're doing as well, and people can find out that on your website. But we're going to get this question in from Antonio. What advice would you give someone who feels like they've lost hope?
Aw, don't give up. I saw something on Etsy a while ago, and it really touched me. It said, "What if everything turns out okay?" And I said, "Wow, that's such a powerful statement," because when we're at our lowest, when we're in depression, the only thing that we see is the gloom and the doom of the end, right? And we don't even think about the possibility that everything might turn out okay. So I would say hold on to that thought. What if everything does turn out okay? And that's something that my psychologist helped me with also. Um, she helped me to like reframe my mind into seeing a beautiful future. Like we would talk about the illustration of being a movie director, let's say. And she would ask me, well, what if you can change the ending scene of the movie? What would you want it to be? And so she helped me kind of reframe my mind into a positive future instead of always thinking that everything is going to be bad.
Absolutely. Well, we have a website that's shown here on the screen, and it's Resilient House. So, can you tell us a little bit about Resilient House and Help Me Sprout?
Okay. So I have two things going on. Resiliency House is the website for my books. So I wrote this one book, and my second book is coming out in October. The title of that one is A Piece of Mama's Heart. I really look forward to that one. It's dedicated to my mom and is written for um, children who had a parent with substance abuse disorder. Um, so if you're interested in purchasing my book, you can go straight to resiliencyhouse.org. Um, Help Me Sprout is the name of the nonprofit that I started. Right now, the website is undergoing some work, so if you type in it, it won't come up at this moment. But you can learn about Help Me Sprout also at resiliencyhouse.org. There's a link there and a donation page there as well if you're interested in donating.
So, this quote, "Help me sprout." What does it mean to you?
Great question. So it's obviously it's a piggyback off the book title for Broken Twig and Sprout. So one of the themes in this book is, one of the themes of my life is that I don't think anybody could survive alone. You know, there's a saying, no man is an island, right? Yeah. So I was able to survive a lot of these things that I've experienced is because I had support. I had a grandmother that loved me. I had Miss Ald in 5th grade who told me that I was going to be somebody great. Um, every stage of my life, actually, I've had like this cheerleader. When I was in nursing school, I'm I'm naturally kind of quiet and shy. The dean of my nursing program told me that was my strength, and she told me that my mildness was going to be what made me a great nurse. So I've always had like these cheerleaders, whispering in my ear when I felt low. They made me kind of like, prop back up again. And so Help Me Sprout, the reason why I named that is because I don't believe that children who have suffered adverse childhood experiences can sprout without the help of a healthy adult. And
Absolutely.
so, yeah, so that's the goal of the nonprofit, is to kind of pull the community in. We need you. You can make a difference in whether a child survives trauma or not. And so that's the goal of the nonprofit, is to help the community get involved in the lives of children.
And it takes a community to raise a child. So
Yeah.
so we need that community. So the community, and what area are you in, Jacqueline, so that we can get some of this community to reach out to you as well?
So I'm in Queens, New York, specifically Long Island City, New York. And actually, I'm so excited because I have a couple of things in the works right now. So I love writing, as you know. And so, and it's been very therapeutic for me. Writing this book has been very therapeutic for me. My favorite page actually is the page that when the older version says to the younger version, "I'm so sorry that those things happened to you." When the illustrator sent me that page, I was bawling. Just to hear those words, "I'm sorry," it did something for me. But so I decided to make a young people writers workshop,
Oh,
so that I can help other children use writing as a tool, a therapeutic tool, intervention. So
and where can people get all the information for that on the website?
yeah, on resiliencyhouse.org. So that's going to go up soon. That's in the works. I just found a local nonprofit that's 10 minutes away from me, that is open to partnering with other nonprofits to use their space. So everything is just coming together now, and it's very exciting. And I hope to be able to have an influence in these children's lives and help them to use writing as a form of therapy. Yeah. And then the second thing is I'm planning a yearly back to school fund where there'll be a workshop for the parents and the caregivers. Because sometimes there are adults that do want to help, but they don't know what to do. They don't know how. And so the nonprofit's goal is kind of to help with that too. I have a kid who's suffered. I don't know how to connect with them. How do you connect with a child who's had so much trauma? So that's the goal of the nonprofit. So those are the two things we have in the works.
Do you have some children that have been reaching out to you since you've written the book?
I have a lot of children in my life because I'm like an auntie to all my, friends' children or whatever. And I've had a few, yeah, I've had a few tell me. Actually, in the book, the audio version is narrated by my best friend's daughter, who's 11. And
Oh,
she's very empathic like me. So it just was the sweetest thing to see her read it and get emotional. And say, that she doesn't want any children to suffer these feelings. And so the audio version is coming out soon as well.
that's cute.
Yeah, she's so cute.
I like that. 11 years old, that's a good age because that's when, just before the hormones kick in,
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good, impactful year, and she knows you as a person too, so she can pull that out of her.
Yeah, it was amazing watching her. So we recorded it together. I did the dedication part. She did the story, and she did a really great job.
And do you hope that the audio will help children that have trouble reading?
Yes, yes. One of my friends' daughter struggles with reading, and it's nice to be able to have the read along. Sometimes you need to hear it while you're looking at the words to help you.
So where does the American Sign Language come in?
Oh, American Sign Language. Okay, so when I was in high school, one of my best friends, she started learning sign in our senior year. And so she would come to school, and teach me little words here and there, and I fell in love with the language. And so after some time, um, I went to a local school in Manhattan, and I learned. And then I went to a deaf congregation where the members there are deaf. And so working with them, spending time with them, they were able to teach me the language. And I love working with the deaf community because, and I say this on my website too, most deaf people have suffered a lot, like emotionally, because especially if they grew up in a hearing family,
Yeah.
because they couldn't communicate with their parents. They couldn't, they're at a dinner table, holiday time, let's say, and they can't talk to the people who are there. So there's this like emotional connection that I have with them because they understand what it feels like to suffer.
Yeah.
And so I love the deaf community. Yeah.
Do you feel that because you were silenced as a child that you can connect with the deaf community?
That's a good question. I feel like yes. I definitely feel there's I mean childhood suffering, regardless of what it is, if it's abuse, neglect, I think it's all the same in that sense of the pain of just wanting someone to love you is the same, regardless of what the situation was. And so I definitely feel the connection there. Being a deaf child and not having your own parent be able to communicate with you, or that's very difficult. Like, how do you even explain that? Yeah.
Absolutely. So if you could tell my listeners where they can get this book and all that good stuff, I'll pull your book up again. And any of the other information that you'd like to give out, how they can reach you to get you on their podcast or on their radio shows and all that good stuff. And then a final message from you, Jackie, to my listeners.
So you can reach me. The website has my email address. So it's jacqueline.boylan@resiliencyhouse.org. I also have helpmesprout@aol.com, which is a little bit easier. But you can purchase the book on resiliencyhouse.org. It's also available on Amazon. I have it on Ingram Spark, so most retailers have it now. Um, and then, what was the second part that you said?
A final message to all the listeners out there.
Oh, I would just say thank you, for your time listening to me today. And, especially if you've experienced some trauma as a child, just know that you deserve to be loved. It's not your fault if the adults around you didn't love you or couldn't love you, whatever the situation was. You can use your life now as a light to help other children. I would say one thing that's unique, even though obviously I wish I never experienced any of these things, it has given me the unique opportunity to be able to relate to other children. It's something like, even with my mom being a drug addict, like, how do you explain that or relate to that if you didn't experience that? So, use whatever challenges that you've experienced as your power to help another person.
Well, thank you so much, Jacqueline. It was an honor to have you on Tea Time and to share your story and to get your children's book out there. To all the listeners and viewers that jumped in and brought your questions, thank you so much. I could not do this without all of you guys. We will be back at 7 p.m. with another Tea Time. But before we wrap up, Miss Liz has got her little wrap up here of what we spoke about today on Tea Time, and we'll leave you some food for thought. And I will see everybody at 7, and we'll do this all over again. But until then, what a moving and inspiring conversation we shared today. Jacqueline, thank you for bringing your courage, compassion, and unwavering faith to the Tea Time table. Today's conversation reminded us that our paths may shape us, but it never has limited us. Through your personal journey and the powerful message as a broken twig can sprout, you've shown us that healing is possible, hope can flourish after heartbreak, and every child deserves to know that their story is still being written. We explore childhood adversity, grief, faith, resilience, family, and the remarkable ability to love to help us grow through even life's most painful seasons. One of today's greatest takeaway is this: brokenness is not the end of the story. It is often where the new growth begins. Your work reminds us that compassion, kindness, and encouragement can change the course of someone's life, especially a child searching for hope. As we close today's tea time, I'd like to leave everyone with this thought. What part of your life have you have you been calling broken when it may simply be waiting for the opportunity to sprout into something stronger, wiser, and more beautiful than you've ever imagined? Because resilience isn't about never breaking, it is about choosing to keep growing. Jacqueline, thank you for sharing your remarkable journey and for reminding us that every child, every family, and every person deserves to know they are stronger than their circumstances. Until next time, continue planting seeds of hope, continue sharing your beautiful story, and continue serving real life tea. Truth, experience, awareness, one conversation at a time. And my takeaway for today is a broken twig is never the end of the tree. Given love, faith, and hope, it can sprout again. So can we. Our greatest strength is often born from the places where life once tried to break us. And I'll see everybody at 7 p.m. and we'll do this all over again.